Hello, hello, hello. So I am going to share my screen in just a couple of minutes. I just wanted to go over a couple of things. I am your host, Mrs. M. Good to see you guys. So I do the weekly GovCon. I call it GovCon and AI because I do not believe we should be doing anything with government and not including AI in our small businesses. So anything I do, I'm going to give you each time the rhythm of this little weekly teaching is what I want you to learn. And so I am an advocate of continuing learning. As you can see, government changes so quickly, especially with the new administration. So these changes that just came up are absolutely the largest changes in decades, like probably since the 70s. So there are a lot of changes. And I'm going to be honest with you guys in some areas where you're going to have to really step it up. And there are going to be some opportunities in some areas where you can really get in there and win. There's going to be some you have to fight, tooth and nail. It can happen. I'm going to explain why you can, make sure that why, and how you can gather things over here, even if a lot's going on over here, because we don't want it to have it make any difference when it comes to winning government contracts. So I am going to share my screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is share it here. Let's see if I can share it here. I'm going to go share. And bear with me because my one of my screens kind of messed up on me at the last minute, but we're going to make it do what it do. All right. So the first thing I'm going to start with is a couple of AI little tips that I like and what is changing with AI. So first, let me find out in the chat how many of you right now use AI for your government business, not for everyday stuff, but for business. That's what I'm interested in. How many of you use it for business? Whether let's look at level one. So we're going to break it down in levels so that you guys understand. Level one is where you give it a prompt and it responds. So are you giving it prompts and it's responding to you? So you can put like a one in the chat if you're utilizing AI to do this. Okay. So you guys are using the prompts to be able to do that. So the second way to use AI is if you guys are getting it to do your CAPE statements, proposals, introduction letters, things like that. So that's the second way. That's a little bit more advanced. Use it slightly. Yes. Okay. So you guys are doing it that way, getting it to do your CAPE statements, introduction letters, marketing to find out who your best agencies are. That's still considered like low level. Now, where we want to graduate to is getting AI as a workflow. So put a two in the chat if you've heard of using AI as a workflow. So put a two in the chat if you've heard of workflow. So put a two if just put a two in there if you've heard of workflow using AI as a workflow. Just put a number two. Because I know I asked you guys if you're using case statements, all that, that's level two. I want to know if you're on number two. Okay. So you are using it as a workflow. That is a level that we want you to get on. So when we look at using it as a workflow, that is where you can use AI in a completely a very level of automation. So when you're using AI with giving it prompts, that is still a very basic level of using AI. Very good, but very basic. You can then take that level and start using AI to go into sam.gov. I don't mention FieldMine and GovWin because those are the ones that are very expensive. I've used them and they can be very costly. But sam.gov is free. Well, AI, you can't give AI a prompt and say, AI, go into my constant contact and put together a list of government agencies that I want to send an email to today. You can't do that. What you can do is you can tell AI, create an email for me that will be sent out to General Service Administration and Veteran Affairs. This is my business. This is what I do. So you're giving AI the prompts. When AI goes into SAM for you, that is where we want to get to. So that's what I want to start teaching you guys how to do that. Because when you're able to go and have AI go into FPDS for you, have AI go into sam.gov, have AI go into acquisition.gov, it is going into these particular logins. So it has to know how to get into the logins and then extract that information. It cannot do that right now. If you tell AI to do it, it'll tell you what you could do to get it to do that. But we want to set it up where it goes in there for you. And every Monday it can actually drag sam.gov. And what it looks like is something similar to this. This is what I work with a company, and this is where I met the gentleman, and he created, and it's called the DIBS Navigator. So this is DIBS right here. And DIBS is still a really great way to win contracts through the Defense Logistics Agency. So if you go in here and you put in an RFQ and you ask it to put in one under the federal supply class, and I think I'll do, let's see, I think that's, excuse me, it's one of the ones I remember. And then it has all this information. If you notice, I've got to drill down more. I've got to click on here, and then I have to go here, and then I've got to see who is the company. And if you notice, there's no information. This is basic. If I go here, I can then go to so this is absolutely free. Now, right here, I don't know what the cost was. I don't know anything about how long the lead time would be, the company. I've got to find the company's number, the phone number. I've got to find out if I can buy this from them. Because the whole thing with DIBS is you're buying things for DIBS, for Defense Logistics Agency, and you are selling it to a government agency, which is DLA. DLA buys all their information from here. This is where they do it. So DLA bids off of this board. If you're interested in doing products, this is the place you would go, and you would get into the bidding process. You have to get your card and register. It's not a long process, but it's about 2 weeks. And then you're able to sell. They do everything from an aircraft to nuts and bolts. So a lot of our students have won their first bids off of DIBS and had great success with it because they feel like that's what they like to do. Most of the orders are going to be on sam.gov, and then you find out that they're on SAM and they're selling them through, they want you to come through DIBS. So in other words, you can't go on SAM's and submit the bid. You still have to go through DIBS. You might find it on SAM, but you're still going through DIBS to submit the bid. Now, this information looks really, really great. Okay, now I at least know the cage code of the person, Cardinal Health. I'm going to Google their number, find them, call them up, boom, boom, boom. Now, if I go here and I go into DIBS, let's see if I can find DIBS navigation or navigator. If I go into DIBS navigator and I go right here, and I don't know if I still have a login or not. I haven't logged in a minute, but we'll see. I think mine expires like real soon. Okay, 15th, just in the nick of time. If I go right here and I do the same thing, they're saying there's like 37,000, 37 million for all of DIBS. There's over 37 million opportunities to bid in dollars. Now, what you're looking at is similar to what AI is when we talk about your workflow. I can come here and I can put in certain information. That same thing over there just gave me basic information. I can come here and let's say I'm interested in something. I can choose the history and it'll give me the DLA price of $268. And then it'll click on here and it'll give me the company's, well, normally it'll give you the company's name. I don't know why it's doing that, but normally it'll give you the company's name. It'll give you the, and I'll see if I can find another one. So in other words, it extracts the information from DLA. So this has been, they've had this for a while, but that's what a workflow does. A workflow can go into Dibs like this is, gather the information. This thing runs overnight, thousands of programs, and gives you the information in a nice little brochure. That's what your workflow can look like. So what we can do is teach you how to create a workflow. Let's try one more. Let's try this one. So this is a history, and this is the one company, and then I click it for details, and this time it worked. So what this company is able to do with their AI is create this workflow where it can give me the company's name, the cage code, the address, where they're located, the phone number, everything. So that is what you can do with sam.gov. You can set it up on SAM where it will go into sam.gov for you. It will gather the information you're looking for. It will let you know, okay, on Monday, these are the bids I want you to bid on. It will then send an email to the agency that it wants you to bid to. And all you have, you're not doing anything. You've already set it up, and that's why it's called a workflow. And that is when it starts to make a difference in your life. Yes, it makes a difference with you being able to tell it to do a case statement and do a website for you. And yeah, it does. But boy, does it make a serious difference when it starts to go in and find bids for you, the best bids for you. And then it streamlines it. Then it sends an email to the agency. It gives you the best contact person based on which one works with small businesses. And all this is done for you just automatically. It's automation. I mean, that blew my mind when I was able to realize I was able to do that and create, like, I can tell it to go into constant contact and do XYZ for me. And that is where it's like really amazing. Yeah. So I can say, okay, on Monday, I'm going to go to a industry day. I don't have an admin person, but I don't want to miss out any opportunities with sam.gov. So I am going to have a workflow set up where on Mondays at this time frame, this particular AI automation tool will go in, it will drag sam.gov, it will look for all of the type of bits I've filtered that I want. It will then send something to the government buyer or the OSDBU, or it'll send something to the small business program person, and it'll introduce me, and then it's going to do something on Tuesday for me and Wednesday, and I might be driving to a meeting, and it's doing all of this in the background. So the major difference you want to understand is when you're prompting it, is doing everything you say do. But you can't tell it next Tuesday, I want you to create something for me, and it remembers. It won't remember that. You can tell it right then. In order for it to remember what you wanted to do next Tuesday, which is find an expiring contract on FPDS, find the agency, send them something on LinkedIn while you're on your way to a industry day. That is where we start seeing the power. And that's the level that I want us to be on. Because that's the level that's not going to get you left behind from anything. Trust me, AI is moving very quickly, and there's going to be a big divide between people that know and people that don't. I'm telling you it is. And so for me, I've spent a while learning AI. And then the last level of AI is where you teach AI to teach it to do stuff for you. So it's like instead of me teaching it the workflow, I have an AI agent that teaches it and does my workflow. So all of that is really exciting. And we're going to just start with the basics. I just wanted you to know the possibilities that you can be driving to a meeting and this darn thing could be writing some stuff for you. And then you get a phone call, you want a contract. Like, what? It did what? It created the proposal. I had already given the parameters and it sent out the I mean, what? Yes, it onboarded my students. What? I'm driving where? I'm at lunch and then getting to have a lunch meeting. So that is where we want to look at. And that's just one level that I wanted to share of what the possibilities are. And now I just want to jump back here for a second and kind of go here. So the next thing we talk about is proposal writing. That's pretty self-explanatory. It can do capture and it can definitely do relationship mapping, can look at your DSBS, it can look at your LinkedIn and help figure out what content and offer program managers you should be actually targeting, even suggesting teaming partners. Now, remember my formula. For those of you that are just joining me or don't know, I always talk about my formula OBART. So my OBART formula is going to be 5 phases or 5 things. And I go over the phases and I want you to get some pen and paper when I go over the phases, because I want you to see where you are in these phases. So the first one is your offer. This is all about what we can call phase 1. So when I go over phase 1, that means you should know your offer. You should have a signature offer. That means you should be able to instantly tell me why you're different. And it should be substantial. It shouldn't be something like, well, because I have a customer service. Everyone has customer service. But it could be, well, the industry average's customer service does this. It takes them like 50 minutes to do this, and we can do it in 10 minutes. That's different. So it can't be just because you have customer service. It can't just because you have uniformed people, or it can't just because your IT does something basic or your transportation. It has to be something that stands out with saving time or reducing something. And that is the thing that's going to get them very excited and interested. The other thing is when we have our signature offer, that's where the beginning of everything is. That's where your website should pop. That's where your CAPE statement, your introduction letter. This is where you can use all your basic AI. The level has I created a thumbnail on AI that looked so nice. So the level of your appearance has to go up. You want to raise it up. Your letterhead should look really nice because you can create it on AI. You don't need a designer to create it now. So the threshold of what you want to present to your government buyer should be higher than it was a year ago. It should be higher because you can go into it and tell it to create it. And what you want to do is you want to try to have maybe 20 prompts that are affiliated with your business. And when I do my students, I give them like 25 prompts that you really want to create. So you want some prompts that are going to get you the information you want, because it's all in the prompts that give you the outcome. It's how you put it together, is how you create your thumbnail, how you create your video, how you create your CAPE statement, your proposal, all of that. So we know that O is for offer and B is for buyer. So if we look right here, we see capture and relationship mapping. Half of the GovCon game is knowing who to talk to. You can be talking to the wrong person and waste your time. AI can comb through LinkedIn, DSBS, and FBS to help you figure out what contracting officers and program managers you should actually be targeting, and even suggest teaming partners. That's like having a GovCon GPS guiding you to the right rooms. That is absolutely correct. If you build the right relationships, you're going to see the difference. And a lot of the time is, who do I build the relationships with? And the number one people you want to build the relationships with are always going to be the same thing. Your OSDBU. If your OSDBU do not know you on a first name basis with the government agency you want to do business with, then they don't know you. If you can't call them up and they say, "Oh, Miss M, how have you been?" That's what they should be saying. Your contracting officer specialist should know you. You should send them enough introduction letters. You should be sending them enough bids that you think you're good with. You should be sending them your updated case statement. You should be working with them. You should be really, really like this. You should have a relationship with them. Because I guarantee you that's 20% of the government buyers that have relationships and 80% don't of the small businesses. So that's already going to put you in the 20%. How many small businesses have signature offers? Probably less than 20%. So it's putting you back in the top 20. So you're leaving the 80% behind and you're doing things that only the 20% are doing. So think about it. I'd love to know how many of you know even what the Ozabu's name is of the agency where you are? How many of you know what the small business person's name is? That lets you know how much marketing and connecting you're doing, because you should definitely know that. And then we want to look at AI for pricing and numbers. Definitely makes sense with that. Remember I talked about workflow. That's what we're talking about. This is one of my favorites because it keeps me organized. You can set up automation. So every morning you get an email with the top 5 new bids that fit your codes, or you can sync AI with your CRM so you never forget to follow up with a CO. That's like having an assistant that never takes a day off. Can you imagine that? And these are 2 things it can do. So it can remember the biggest reason why people don't win bids is 1, they don't reach out, and 2, they don't follow up. The money is in the follow up. So if AI is popping in there and it is showing you how to do a workflow, then it's going to give you so much more. So these are just 5 basic ways. And when I look at my O for offer, my B for my buyer, when I look at my buyer, we're looking at in here, reaching out to LinkedIn. I'm going to discuss my A for my avenue to win. On here, it talked about proposals. You guys may not be in the proposal writing position, and we're going to talk about that because it's going to really change on October 1st. So right now, it's still the same, and I know people that still win contracts all the way up to the last day of September. So don't think that this still isn't the Q4 for buying. It absolutely is. I know people that win the last day of the month of September. So don't think that you can't win a contract with this little bit of time left. Yes, you can. So A for Avenue is one of the most important decisions you can make after you nail down your offer. Finding your buyers really isn't that challenging. Where the challenge comes in is getting to know your buyers. Do you spend time on the org chart? Do you know their strategic plan? Have you looked at their budget? Have you really spent time getting to know your buyer like people spend time getting to know us? When they spend billions getting to know what we buy and our habits, what time do we go into the store, how much money we spend, do we spend cash or credit? All of that they know because it's the money they want to make. Well, we should be as interested in our government buyers. You should know about good 5 things. Where are they? Are they on SAM? Do they go to FPDS? Are they on LinkedIn? They're not going to be a lot of places for government. Now, if you were doing private, they could be everywhere. They could be on TikTok. They could be Instagram. That's what makes government so nice. They're going to be a couple of places. They're going to be either in their own vendor portal. They're going to be on DSBS. They're going to hang out on LinkedIn, but it's not like you have to go a lot of places. So it makes it easy, definitely easier. And then the last 2 things we look at is, and I say your A for avenue because not every avenue is going to fit you. And I'm going to explain that in just a couple of minutes. The next 2 things we're going to look at is R for relationship. When we start looking at doing what I'm going to share with you, joint venture and teaming are going to really make a big deal. And I'm explaining to that in a minute when I start telling you the new way that a lot of things are going to be purchased. So JV is joint venture. Teaming is teaming. I love to know in the chat if someone could tell me, if they could tell me what is the difference in a joint venture and a teaming. If anyone knows, can you put it in the chat? Like, what's the JV? If there's one Major difference. But it's a big money maker. Okay, so I don't think any of you guys know what the difference. Has anyone heard of JV, joint venture? Have you guys heard of that? Okay. So, all right, so you've heard of it. So I'm going to go over that in a minute because I really want you to know the difference. So we look at the relationship and how important that relationship is and how important it is when it comes to AI. So joint venture, you have to create another business. Absolutely. When you're looking at doing the joint venture, you're creating a brand new business. You're creating one, and you could create one for a short time. You could create it for a one-time contract. You can create it for a series of contracts. You can look at creating it for a time frame like 2 years. So I was on a joint venture with a moving company, and we created a company together. And we did move contracts where they would go in and move out, and we did all the construction and everything. And it was a very good deal because when you're doing the joint venture, and I'll explain that in a minute when we see why that's important. And teaming is important as well, and I'll tell you the difference in the two. But the JV is going to really make a difference moving forward in a lot of ways. So, any questions on how you can use AI, getting your imagination going on AI, and all of that? Any questions at all before we move on? So, get busy doing some real research on ways you can make AI work for you. All right, so let's kind of scroll down here and let's look at where we are and where do you guys think you are. So, the target is 500K revenue from federal contracts by month 12. 500K. All right. So how am I going to get to 500K right now? Today is September 2025 to September 2026. Well, the first thing is when we talk about our O for O bar is laying the foundation. So month 1 to 3, you want to become contract ready and visible to your buyer. That's your focus. So you want to set up your SAM, your DSBS profile. Very important with your keywords. Don't just throw anything up there. Make sure your one-page credibility statement, your PDF, your NAICS codes, your PSCs. Make sure you have those on there. Your core competencies, your past performances, and of course, your differentiators are your signature offer. So you should have your DSBS profile tight as it can be. You want to take your DSB profile, put it into AI, and ask it to give you a rating. You want to know how well you're doing because you don't want to miss opportunities if you cannot be visible to buyers. They have to find you in order to work with you. So this is where you want to really work on that. This is where your certs come in. You can be a woman on Small Business HUD, all of those, 8A. There are some changes. What the changes are is that they went down to 5% in the business in the asserts, but they went up with the small business self-certification. So the small business self-certification went up and the small business certifications went back down to 5%. So woman owned 5, hubs owned 5. During the previous administration, that had gone up. Small disadvantaged business, which is 8A, that's what 8A falls under, small disadvantaged business. All of those went up. Now they're back. The one that went up is a small business certification, and that's a self-certified, and that just means you certify that your business is making under 22 million. So a lot of businesses fall under there. That's why the numbers kind of changed a little bit. Do not forget to try and get your MBEs, your minority businesswoman, and your DBEs in your state. Now, the key is to get some quick wins. You want to focus on the relationship. The number one way you're going to win your first contract 9 times out of 10 is going to be during quarter 4. It's going to be during a storm, during a disaster. It's going to be when you really start to build that relationship. That's when you're going to see the work start to pay off. You've got to make sure that you're following up, you're calling, This is where that workflow comes in and all those things that we talked about earlier, because this is where you've got to get your foot in the door. You want to try to get that 10K. Yes, they took a lot of the micro purchase cards away, but there's still a lot of agencies that have them. Veteran Affairs, there's still a lot of them out there. USDA, lots of them have the 10K. What is the other way that this new administration is really heavily letting you win contracts? 250. 250K is another one, which is a simplified acquisition procedure. With the SAP, there is no justification, there is no qualification, but I'm quite sure that a government buyer is not going to lose their job and go to jail because they are giving you a contract that they don't think you can do. So that's the key. They think you can do it and they know you. So there's nothing wrong with you building a relationship with them. They just don't want the contracts going to someone that has no idea what they're doing just because I know you. Knowing you is going to make it better. They're going to feel like you have things vested. So the best way is to build a relationship. First, if you don't have your DSPS and all that set up, you're so not ready yet. Get that done. You can get that done today's Wednesday by Friday. That's done. Then start getting your mind ready if you want to do any certifications. That's an ongoing process. So say I'm going to work 1 day a week and get that straight. And then the next thing is you want to focus on a quick win, a one that's 250 and under 10,000. And you want to find these on SAM, USAspending.gov, DIBS. You can look for in your state portals. You want to definitely look at getting that. Now that's between month 1 and 3. If you focus on this, you should be able to land your contract within month 1 and 3 if you're really putting the time in. Your milestone by month 3 should be your SAM and your DSP complete, your 1 month capability. Actually, that should be done within the month. Your one capability, because now you have AI, at least 2 micro purchases submitted. So in month 1, I want you guys to have already submitted, not by month 4. Month 2, you guys are submitting your 5th and 6th one. So now we get into month 4. This is where we're really focusing on building our past performance. We're looking at really aggressively looking at bidding on low dollar buys. We're looking at really focusing on building relationships, getting to know the buyer on a micro level. When did they last purchase something? What was the agency that bought it? What company bought it? And not agency, what company bought it? And what did they have? Study that competition. What do they have that you don't have that they want to conjure? Do they know them? Is that it? Are they, they have some kind of cert that I don't have? That's where you want to start looking at apples to apples. What is it they have that I don't? And of course, make sure they're in your area. You don't want it to have it in DC and you're in San Antonio, because you want to be exactly, and you get all that off of FPDS. You can find it off of there. Now you want to start also subcontracting. Reach out to large primes in your NAICS code using FPDS, and that's where AI can come in. And you want to go into your niche, local presence. If they're doing disaster, emergency work, you want to really get into there. Now, teaming is where I have the prime, and then there's the sub. The prime and the sub, that's teaming. A joint venture, and when I have a teaming agreement, then the agreement is what keeps us together. I'm always going to be the prime and you're always going to be the sub. And so that's where the math comes in. Okay, what percentage needs to be done by you? What percentage needs to be done by the sub? And that's where the middleman comes in. That kind of thing. So you got to make sure that the numbers are right. So focus on teaming. There are advantages for a prime contractor to team with a small one. There are major advantages. That's where you're going to go to subnet. That's where you're going to really do your due diligence, of course, using AI to learn how to do that. So you want to reach out to them and get to know them. And this is where you're signing your team agreements. So month 4 to 6, that's your focus. You're looking, okay, I haven't won anything yet. I got to stay on it. And this is where you might add a Saturday. This is where you turn off the TV. This is where work maybe make every evening you work add an extra hour. So instead of working 4, you add one each night, and that equals, maybe 5. Maybe you get up earlier that Saturday where everybody's still sleeping, and go in your room or wherever and do this. This is where you've got it, because you don't want to get so far behind where you're in month 9 and 7 and 9 and you haven't gotten anything. You haven't submitted a bid. You haven't done a dibs. You just still nothing. You want to at least start submitting bids and getting some debriefs to know what you're doing wrong. Some people wait 9 months, haven't even submitted a bid yet, even a small one. So that's where you want to start doing that. Milestone in 6 months, at least 1 to 2 wins, whether you're a prime or a sub. Definitely try to do the sub. I did a subbing. 5+ prime contractor conversations initiated. You've called them up. I used to go to them. I would get out of my car and I would see some people at the government buildings, and I'd go over there and start conversations. And I met so many people by doing that. So I had to realize I had to get out of my own way and start looking at what I need to do. And then I might get a card and go back. And I might be in line somewhere. I'm talking to someone and find out that they work, because you guys, even though you're not in the DC area where I am, you still work around a lot of people that you might be able to connect with. So you never know who knows someone that might work for an agency or might be a large prime contractor. You have no idea. They may know someone that works at Lockheed Martin or any of those places. So start looking at what prime contractors in your area. Can you drop off one of your cards? Can you go up there? I don't think there's an area that didn't have a prime contractor. So start doing that. This is where you've got to go out on a Saturday, fold the card up, put it on the door. Take your intro letter, put it together, put it in the door. If they call you, say don't litter anymore, then okay. I mean, usually they're not going to arrest you one time, if you put some paper there. So it's just, this is where you've got to be creative and you've got to get out of your way and get busy. So and this is where we want to have at least one teaming agreement. We're working with someone. Then we look at month 7 to 9, we're scaling with strategy. That's when we're looking for larger contracts. We're developing a pipeline. Your pipeline, you're building 12 months out. By the time you get to month 7 and 9, you don't want to be living, 1-to-1, mouth to hand. You want to be able to look out and say, okay, I've got this one closing, that one's coming in. There's that security, that regular revenue. You want to build a 12-month pipeline of opportunities with state contracts. And this is where you want to go into GSA. And I'm going to talk about that before we wrap up. You want to go into the GSA task orders. And this is where you're going to go in and you start looking at doing the GSA task orders. So it's going to be like a GWAC, and you don't have to be on it, but that's where you want to find someone that has one of those, and they need you to complete the task order because they underestimated how many people they had. You want to focus on opportunities where competition is limited. Set aside, disaster recovery, local facility support, improve your proposal process. Create a template, already have that ready. Have your cover letter. AI can do that in a minute. Use the AI proposal tools to draft faster and respond to more opportunities. That's why I said AI is going to leave you behind. You can start increasing them and cranking them out a lot faster. And then you want to start doing partnerships. And this is where, in order to do a joint venture, you have to have 2 years in business, and then you can explore the SBA. That's where they have that mentor prodigy program. And get on Prime's radar for larger tasks between 500K and a ceiling. Milestone by the 9th month, 3 to 5 bids submitted consistently each month, 100K in pipeline, past performance booked, and your mentor prodigy get started. So phase 4 is your breakthrough. You want to have your goal, and this is where you kind of go towards the millie. So win larger SAPs, focus on that 100 to 250. First, focus on 10. Then next, focus on 50. Then next, try to focus on 100. Try to go up about 50K, 75K each time until you get to 250. Now that's when you get into like a sort of like a credit line. You get the other credit cards, then you can go and get your American Express or whatever. So you want to look at the playing field is under 250. But play in that field and get at least 3 agencies and get to know them and get to let them get to know you. Because once you get out of the 250, I'm going to show you why that changes. Use past performance, go after multi-sites. So if you're doing janitorial, if you're doing IT, try to look at, that's how I grew so fast. Try not to look at one, but try to do multi awards. Leverage your partnerships. I did a lot of IDIQs. I didn't do very many BPAs. You want GSA, led consolidated vehicles. Of course, you have to have 2 years in order to get GSA. You want to build that presence with those agencies, the small business offices. Like I told you, they don't know who you are. You're not out there. Be strategic, build presence, and share wins, testimonials. You can come on to, we have quite a few government officers come on to our GovCon Facebook thing, and they have reached out to a couple of our people. So LinkedIn, GovCon, those are some places, GovCon communities. Milestone by 12 month, at least 1250 to 500K. Active in at least one subcontract and 2 awards. Ready to pursue GSA schedule or joint venture in 2 years. So 1-year outcome, federal ready foundation. First prime wins, you did them under simplified and micro. Subcontracting relationship with primes. Past performance strong enough to apply for GSA because you built that ladder with all of the smaller ones. And now you're targeting your 5K and your position for your 7-year growth, 7-figure growth within 2 to 3 years. Now, this is an actual roadmap that I follow. This is where I wrote all my things down, and this is what I actually did. So I did the exact way. I didn't know that I was doing it, but I did. And I got the multiple accounts, and I did a lot of talking and getting to know people. And I made sure I went to the right events, not just chat and choose where they just chatting. And no, I went to the ones that were industry days, people that were going to be local, that I could build a relationship with. And if they had some major events that were national, then I wanted to go and make sure that I spread the information of where I was. So any questions on this before we wrap up with GSA? Any questions on if you think this is possible, you think it's if you focus on just look at 3 months at a time, just that little bit right there. Okay. So last part is GSA. And let's see if I have this on here. All right, let's go here. Okay, I guess I didn't write that one down. So I have it here. All right, so let's look at what we've got when we look at GSA. So GSA, let's go right here. Let's bring it down here. So with GSA, let's go right here. Okay. These are going to be the changes with GSA. Number 1, starting October 1st, and I'll just stop sharing right here. Just kind of give you guys that. Okay. So number 1, starting on October the 1st, these are going to be the changes. So GSA is going to be the main place that buys everything. General Service Administration. So what that's going to look like is, so they've changed it. They've created an office within GSA that's called the Office of Contracting Acquisition Services. So it's called I think OCAS. And what that means is that it's going to be what they call under one federal wallet. So GSA is going to be the ones that buy almost everything with IT and common goods and services. Now, we all know the GSA has schedules. So does that mean that you're going to have to be on a schedule every time you get something with GSA? No. But what is going to happen is, let's say, for instance, there was at one time you could get a $150,000 janitorial contract with the VA directly. Now, the VA has to go through GSA, and GSA gets to determine if that company is the one that they want to select for that job. Do I think the GSA is going to work with the company that comes and tells them? Yes. So even if it's under 250,000 as of October 1st, if I go to VA and the VA wants to hire me directly, I'm still going to have to submit information to GSA. Even if I'm doing a simplified acquisition procedure, I'm still going to submit something to GSA saying I'm choosing this person. I'm going to have to kind of let them know that this is the company I want to choose. Do I think it's going to be challenging for them to let you know who they want to choose? No, I do not. I've talked to GSA, I've talked to people that are there, and I've seen how they were going to make them all come back to the office. And then after 2 weeks, it was very lax. So I think that they want to make it seem like there's all these changes and they're going to be really, really hard. And then behind the scenes, it's not as tough as it seems like it's going to be. So I believe that if you focus on government buyers that are in your industry, if the VA is your person or if USDA is your person, they're still going to be your person. You're still going to go to them and they can still purchase it outright. Where I think the gray area is going to be things that are over 250. I think the gray area, which is going to be harder, is from that 250 up to maybe that million. And I think that they're even changing some of the GSA where they're going to, I think they're even changing some of the GSA where they're going to allow them to start buying up to 1 million. So no, micro purchases, Jackie, will not be affected. So micro purchases will not be affected. Simplified acquisition procedures, which are SAPs, under 250 will not be affected. They're just going to have to go through GSA to get signed off on. So it's like an extra step. So it's sort of like a process, excuse me, it's sort of like a processing plant. Before I'm a veteran, a government buyer. I'm sitting in VA. You walk in, I like what you do, and I sign the contract, boom, you keep it moving. Now you come in, I like what you do. I send the contract over saying I want to purchase this, and then GSA looks at the budget, looks at everything, and says, okay, yes, that's going to work. So there's sort of like another step to approval. Now, why do I think it's going to be easier? They're giving government buyers a lot of latitude under 250. Under 250, I think it's going to just go off the shelf. They're going to micro purchases and things like that are going to go quickly. Computers, all of that. Where I think it's going to be tough is probably 1 million to 2, 3 to 5 million. That I think is going to be tougher. You guys aren't really in the field, and this is where I'm telling you to set it up where you're going to end up being on a joint venture with someone that you're going to come together, and maybe they've already done those kind of contracts. You have 2 years. Maybe you have the money. Maybe they have the experience. Maybe you have the experience. Maybe they have the money. So you're going to look at coming to them for a reason. Maybe you have the money, but not the equipment. So there's a reason why you come together in a joint venture. And joint ventures, you can joint venture with someone that has an 8A and you don't. So there's a lot of advantages to joint ventures, as there are with teaming. The only difference with the teaming is the person never becomes the prime. They always stay the sub. With the joint venture, it's like the contract is the agreement. So it's like both of you are there, except that one company has to have 51%. So in essence, one company might have a just, and that's if you were married, one person gets 49, one person, there always have to be that split decision. But when you sign everything and you go through your joint venture, then there's no problem because that's like I said, that's what I did. So to cap it, to kind of like wrap it up, before, if I went to VA or if I went to USDA and I wanted to get a contract, if it was under 250, that contracting officer could approve it and I'm done. Now the contracting officer can approve it, but it still has to go to GA for processing. So that's the step. They call it one wallet. They want all the money to come out of that wallet in essence. So it's not that they're approving or disapproving. They just, I guess, want to keep up with the money so they can see how much is being spent. Probably want to look and see if there's some favoritism being provided with. And I think it's more like 8A that are winning these, multi-million dollar, 8 million, 20 million, those kind of things, not, 35,000, 250,000. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking at these, areas where one 8A company received all these contracts, and there's question on if they were, why did they get all the contracts? Because you can do a sole source, and how were they able to justify it? So I think that's what it is. But that's going to start October 1st, and I think pretty soon they're going to raise the simplified acquisition to 1 million. And like I said, with the SAP, there are no questions asked. That it's just they're going to process it through GSA. So everything's being processed through GSA. So it's like the money is coming from GSA, like your parent. Your parent's not going to tell you no, but your parent is the one that's paying the school bill, kind of like that. Okay. So that is where we have what we have now. Um, I always like to offer something to you guys. Can you speak? Yes, on the blanket purchase agreement. So a BPA is where they have one item that's being like one purchase agreement that's purchasing all these things. So I may have a BPA for 12 blankets and 15 of this and 12 of this and 13 of this. And it's one agreement and it's for years, but it's a certain amount and it's a certain quantity. It's like, it's just that it's like a blanket over many items, as opposed to IDIQ, it's indefinite quantity and indefinite amount, like indefinite time. I don't know if I'm doing it for 5 years, 1 year, I don't know. So BPA is a little bit more structured with the understanding of what it is. Um, let's see, when and begins do contracts. And I'll answer one question for you. So that's what the BPA is. BPAs are once again one of those that are not as easy to get on your own, but you can get on someone's. That's the key. But you can normally, like, I know they have task orders for some of the schedules with like GWAC or something with GSA. I know that you can get on a lot of task orders. I know you definitely get on one on the IDIQ. I think you can with the BPA, but that's the difference with the BPA. Just a blanket of items that it covers for that amount, and it covers all of this. Sort of like the VA, if you're under community care for the VA gives you a doctor and they write an agreement that this is what they're going to cover. And it's an agreement that covers all these different things under this one agreement. And that's your agreement for that, for all the different items, but it's one blanket item together that covers all that. One covers all of those. That's kind of like a BPA. So I hope I explained it where it made sense. Let me know if I did. will you need GSA's approval for what? Will it need for I don't think so. I don't think you're going to need GSA's approval for BPAs. I don't think you will. Nope. And then the other question is, well, Q4 ends October 1, begins to do contracts availability slow down. Contract availability does not slow down. Where the contracts are going to be more, probably a little bit slower, are going to be depending on your NACS code. There will always be contracts for common service. There will always be contracts for like landscaping and janitorial and construction and certain products and groundkeeping and security. Those are common services that they just talked about. There will always be contracts for those, but some of them may, like nursing, you may see a difference. Transportation, it could be. Those might be a little bit depending on, but those usually stay steady. The ones I mentioned, the common services usually stay steady. So that should be something. A BPA is considered one of those multi agreements. It can set you up very well. So it is something a lot of people go after. It's like a schedule, kind of like the it has the weight of a schedule, kind of like that. So what I was going to say is what I am doing is I am going to do a three approach consulting uh, where I'm going to be live and I do it on Wednesdays and I do an hour. And so it's an hour where we're going to go over kind of like where you guys have your work and everybody's working and I'm helping you. So I get a lot of people that say, Miss M, I need help really side by side. Like I need you to help me as if you were like in my room somewhere with me. And so what we notice is that when you do like group training and you kind of do it where everyone's together and asking questions, then more people will realize they didn't know this or they didn't know that. So that is what I'm offering. And I'm going to offer that in the next week so that way people can be ready for the end of this quarter going into the first quarter. One of the main things I'm going to talk about is the workflow, the AI workflow, setting that up that we talked about. The other thing that I'm going to talk about is the schedules, the BPAs, IDIQs, task orders. And then the other thing I'm going to focus on is that step by step of being set up for the 1 month and then the next month, kind of giving you a skeleton of what we want to do. So in other words, I gave you where you want to be in a year. So let's say next year, this time, that's where you want to be. So we're going to go through that and step by step to set up everything you need. Okay. It was pretty gathered and clumped together. It's going to be more detailed. Like it was just like, you need to make sure you have your keywords. Why go into more of why, what, how, what keywords, and kind of make sure that you have all that together. So we'll be doing, and I think it's like an hour and 15 minutes of just, and you're going to already have gotten some things, so you'll be ready. And what it is looking to get you ready to get to the what I mentioned on there, the six figures, and then having all of those things that when we just went over a few minutes ago. So if anyone's interested, then I'll send you more information. You just need to text me. So it's not going to be expensive, but I do want to do that because I had a couple people ask me about going into the new year. So I'm not going to make it costly, just enough to cover me being here because this is my this is my lunch hour. But anyway, so if anyone's interested, they would just text the 407-986-8228. I'll put that there. And so what I'm going to look at doing is my goal is to connect you guys with some. I'm gonna do some calling. We want to get the Ozaboos. We want to get who you need to talk to, We want to make sure we get certain little things in place. So you have a year outline of where you should be month 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and then 9 to 12. Step by step roadmap on where you should be. So 407-986-8228. You'll text me interested or I'm in, and then that's when I will send you the information of when it starts, how much it is. And like I said, it's not going to be expensive. It's for about an hour and a half. I need to get some training on how to use AI prompts. Yeah, that, and like I said, we're going to do the AI prompts. I'm going to give you guys 50 AI prompts just for your government. We're going to talk about the all the different stuff. So you just need to text me. I see Malik says that he's interested. So I'll write you down, Malik. But I'm going to do the AI prompts, write down the step by step. I'm going to talk about BPAs. How do you specifically get on a task order? How are you going to work with GSA if you go to VA and you go back over to Veteran Affairs, and how to get ready for the new quarter because all the changes start on October 1st. So if you're interested, just say interested, I'm in. And this, and we're going to cover the prompts, and we're going to talk about what you need to set up the workflow. Okay. And it's going to be on a very basic level. And we're going to work side by side. So it's not going to be slideshows and all that. It's going to be like where you guys are working, and then hey, Miss M, I have a question about this one. This is what, and I'm going to just talk to you as if we're in a group together in my office. So it'll be like a work day. Okay. All right, then. So 407-986-8228. If you're interested, you would need to send that as soon as possible. So that way I could get everything set up so we can get it. I know it won't be next week. It'll be the week after, like that Monday is what we're going to do, or Tuesday. But okay. All right. Any questions? Any questions at all? Okay. Well, you guys have a fantastic day. And I look forward to seeing you guys again real soon. Take care. Bye bye.